So we're here at Slush. It's November 2025, and I'm super excited to be sitting down with the co-founder and president of Harvey.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
So is it your first time Slush?
First time at Slush.
Gabe, I'd love to start. Tell us about Harvey. So before you started the company with Winston, you were actually at Meta, you were at DeepMind. What was that moment of inspiration that led to start Harvey?
I think when I'd been doing AI research, it was always a means to an end of starting an AI company. I was super interested in just how to apply this technology. And I think the 10 years before Harvey was really figuring out what is the right industry to apply it to. And before I started Harvey, Winston and I were roommates, we were best friends. He was a lawyer at O'Melveny. And when he started showing me the work he was doing at O'Melveny and I showed him the models and the things we were doing at Meta, it was kind of just this light bulb moment of, oh, this is going to be one of the really big applications of this technology.
How did you narrow down on legal, and where did the product start?
Yeah, so when we started the company, or right before we started the company, I was actually brainstorming with a bunch of my friends from Google of these very general horizontal assistants. And they ended up joining OpenAI, and they were the team that was responsible for building ChatGPT. And in that process, Winston had said, oh, why don't you build an assistant for legal? And I think a lot of it was just I wanted to start a company with Winston, and so that focused us on legal. And then I think even within legal, there's a big question of, do you consumer legal? Do you sell to in-house? Do you sell to the large law firms? And when we got early traction with A&O, which was one of the largest European law firms, that kind of solidified, okay, we want to go sell to the largest law firms.
Okay, super. And how did you guys go about getting your first 100 users? What was that like?
Yeah, so we actually got all of them from A&O. So we built an initial product, showed it to David Wakeling, who was a senior partner CIO at A&O. And when he saw it, he was like, oh, this is what I'd been looking for in legal tech for a while. And so we did a pilot with maybe 30 people, and then that pilot expanded to 100, and then they did a firm-wide rollout to maybe 1,500 lawyers and eventually 3,000. And so it scaled really quickly. And even today, I think their usage is something in the like 90% monthly active users. And so they still use it every day.
And I'd love to talk about your view on, the applications of generative AI within law more broadly, right? So originally, from what I understand, Harvey was like document analysis, kind of some semantic search. Like, where did the product start and where is it today?
Yeah, I would think of the original product was really an AI associate. So it's kind of legal ChatGPT. And I think where big law work is so challenging is it's very similar to programming, where the work is super text-based and super complex. And the same way in programming, you don't really have tools beyond an IDE. Legal was the same way, where you had all this legal tech that stored your documents and things like that, but all the reasoning you had to do yourself. And that, I think, was what was so amazing about these models of they could start doing a lot of this. Yeah. And then I think the question for Harvey has been, what is all the product you need to build around that? And so we've really shifted from how do we make this super useful for an individual lawyer to how do we make this useful for teams of lawyers working on an entire litigation, an entire transaction. And now today, even more, how do you help an entire law firm deploy this technology at scale, collaborate with their clients, become more profitable? And so there's a lot of questions beyond just practice of law, but also business of law, and how is this going to transform how not just individual lawyers work, but how law firms work.
I love that. And before we went live, we started talking about your background, in DeepMind, at university in Oxford, also at Meta. What are the principles or the kind of ways of thinking that you took from working in those environments that helped you when you started Harvey?
Yeah, I think the biggest was probably when you were doing AI research, a lot of the problem of doing AI research was how do you decompose human intelligence and figure out this is what models can do, this is what models can't do, this is what humans are good at, this is what humans are not good at. And I think that way of thinking about intelligence, how you measure it with data sets and things like that, I think that's been super useful when we think about building the product, because we get a lot of questions from law firms of, is this going to change how first-year associates work, how senior associates work? And there isn't a simple answer of like, this swaps in this way. It really is this like really complicated hybrid, but the better you can kind of like tease that apart and give these really like detailed answers of this is what your associates are really good at, this is what the models are going to get good at, and this is how you should change how you work, how you structure things. I think that helped a lot.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Like, what does the future of a law firm look like once Harvey has hoovered up as much of the kind of LLM first workflows?
Yeah, I think this one's challenging, where I think it's similar to what you're going to see in programming, where it's not a simple answer that, oh, these models will do what junior programmers do. Like when we see our programmers using Gen AI and these agents, it really is this like hybrid cyborg thing where it doesn't replace like one layer of work, it just changes how you think about workflows. I think for law firms, where we're thinking a lot about is how do we help them deploy this technology in a way that makes them more profitable. And so I think there's things around how do you deliver these services to clients. If you do think about starting to change how you price, how you deliver these, I think there's some questions there. But at the end of the day, it's just how do you use this to deliver better services to your clients.
What has been the biggest surprise for you and Winston and the team? You know, expectations versus reality of starting and growing Harvey to the scale it's got to today. And maybe also share, like, what scale is Harvey at today? Number of customers, perhaps revenue, would love to know.
We're just over 500 people now. We crossed 100 mil in revenue earlier this year.
Congrats.
Thank you. Over 700 customers.
And you started in 2022.
Yes, yeah, just over 3 years ago.
100 mil run rate business in...
Yeah, it's been a crazy 3 years.
Incredible.
Yeah, and I think definitely the surprising thing is just how quickly it's scaled. I think also how much we've been able to work with law firms to adopt this technology. I think when we started the company, a lot of people said legal would be slower to adopt this. The models aren't perfect, so people won't use this. And I think that was something that ended up being really counterintuitive, where these law firms actually, I think, were some of the early adopters of this technology and are ahead of a lot of like the enterprises that we talk to about how they think about this technology. So I think that was surprising to us and to a lot of other folks.
And then on the fundraising side, you've had some amazing investment from, I think, Kleiner Perkins. Did I also read some strategic investment from OpenAI?
OpenAI was actually our seed investor. So when Winston and I first pitched the idea, we pitched it to Sam and Brad at OpenAI, and they said, legal is going to be a great application. We'll fund you. We got early access to the models. And so that really set the original direction. And then I'm here at Slush with Ilya from Kleiner Perkins, who's an early investor. And yeah, I think we've been super fortunate to be able to work with a lot of these folks.
In one sentence or a couple of sentences, like advice for a first-time founder raising perhaps a seed round, for their startup today?
I would say you just need to show traction. Like, I think part of why we've been able to fundraise is we were able to show traction. And I think in enterprise, it's revenue, in consumer, it's users, but I think that's the most important thing. You need to build something that people want, and you need to be able to show investors that people want it.
If you could wind the clock back, Gabe, with a couple of minutes left that we have together, what advice would you give yourself before you started Harvey 3 years ago?
A big challenge I had is when I did research, I spent a lot of time as an IC working myself. And when you do research, you spend all your time kind of trying to come up with the answer yourself. And I think the biggest scaling challenge, and we've been super fortunate to hire such great people, where now most of my job is not coming up with the answer. It's how do you hire the right people? How do you build the right organization? How do you just get out of people's way? And I think it took me longer than maybe it should have to like learn how to do that. And I'm still learning to do that. Well, there'll be things where I want to like jump in and be like, no, this is the answer. But I think getting to that point and being able to like, okay, we've put the right pieces in place and you can get out of the way. I think that's like a big like learning that I've had and what I would have told myself 3 years ago.
Love it. Final question from me. For those listening at home, founders and builders, it's people looking to start their company for the first time, maybe serial entrepreneurs, maybe people thinking about working for a startup or investing. How can the community help you and Winston at the team in Harvey? Are you hiring? Yeah. Are you raising soon?
Biggest is we're hiring, so definitely apply. And yeah, and then I would say the other for people thinking about starting companies and things like this, I don't think there's been a better time to start a company. Like with these models, it's easier than ever to build prototypes, build things. And so, I mean, apply to Harvey, but also I think build cool stuff, because as we get bigger, like one of the best ways to find talent is finding people that have built cool companies, cool things. I think that's something we always look for, of a way for people to showcase kind of their talent. So I would say go build stuff.
Love it. Yeah, I heard from Anton on the stage earlier today, demo, don't memo.
Exactly, yeah.
If you want to show it, build it.
Yeah.
Gabe, thank you so much for the time.